Ohio Congressman Brad Wenstrup, chairman of the House Subcommittee investigating the COVID pandemic. Sir, you were in the room today for this with Dr. Fauci. What was your takeaway from all this?
Well, I think you certainly covered down on a lot of it in the preamble to me coming on, and I think you did a good job of doing it. You know, one of the things I think that stood out to me, if you're looking at the overall hearing itself, besides delving into the facts, it seems that we had people on one side of the aisle doing nothing but apologizing to Dr. Fauci. And something you touched on a little bit, there was no apology coming back from Dr. Fauci for so many things that he declared and that affected so many people's lives, and they were done without science. And as well, there was really no apology for what took place under his directorship at NIAID concerning Dr. Peter Daszak, who was getting grant money to go to Wuhan, China to do gain-of-function research. And no apology for the behavior of Dr. Morens through this entire process, and maybe years of this. You know, at the beginning, I think America was ready for the 15-day shutdown. Okay, let's figure this out. We get it. Nobody knows what's going on. Yeah. But when you carried this over for months and months and years, especially when data was coming in and it didn't make sense, and that's something they didn't do, and clarity was never there. Dr. Fauci says, well, when he said to Dr. Paul that they weren't doing gain-of-function research in Wuhan, China, remember, former acting NIH director, Dr. Tabak, said, yes, we were. Well, Dr. Fauci said, well, I have another definition for it. Well, you certainly weren't very clear about that when you were in front of Dr. Paul or with the American people. So all of these things, 6 feet, no science. You didn't say that. You didn't say there was no science. You were just estimating it, and it just sort of appeared. So none of this stuff was fair and clear to the American people. All the while he says, everything I've said is based on science, and it wasn't.
No, this is crazy to me. And sir, here's the big thing too. Is look, Democrats do something stupid, Republicans get angry about it. I go to bed, I wake up, and the same thing happens the next day. Is there anything we can do? This guy's getting $400 grand a year in pension. He has somehow retained all of his titles. Is there a way to strip this guy of everything that means something to him?
Well, if I can say one thing, our investigation has led to actually NIH taking action against Peter Daszak and EcoHealth Alliance by debarring him and EcoHealth Alliance, where they'll not get one more penny after this. We're going to continue to investigate. You know, keep in mind, Dr. Morin says Dr. Fauci uses his Gmail as well. Dr. Fauci today said he doesn't use any other email but his official. Well, let's find out. And so we've asked for that. But I want to point out one thing about the hypocrisy. You know, there were times here in D.C. where if I wanted to go to a dinner over at the Library of Congress, I had to be tested that day. Meanwhile, people are coming across our border untested, unvaccinated.
Right.
We put a mandate on so many Americans. So many soldiers lost their lives. People advised by their doctor because of their medical condition to maybe not get the vaccine because they're pregnant. So all these people losing their jobs, etc. And meanwhile, people are coming across the border unvaccinated and untested and just dispersed across America.
And I got to follow.
This is what drives us crazy.
Right. And I got to follow a stupid green line on the supermarket floor so I can go buy food for my family if they let me in that day. I mean, it was insane. Before I let you go, let's get into these emails. We know let's not say fact, but we know because of testimony under oath that Dr. Fauci used the Gmail account. We know that someone deleted emails because they've testified to the fact. We know that these people were trying to cover something up. We know that this came from a lab in Wuhan, and yet they are still saying it's complicated now. How do we trust these people ever again, and will there be consequences should you find those emails from Dr. Fauci?
If we don't clean up our agencies, in this case, Health and Human Services, NIH, NIAID, as far as malfeasance that takes place within those agencies, if we don't put in criminal liabilities when people within our agencies violate their own standards, we will never be able to establish trust again. We need people that we can trust. I said from the very beginning, under both administrations, America should be hearing from the doctors treating COVID patients, the ones at the bedside, the ones that can tell us what they're seeing, what's working, what's not, who's vulnerable, who's not. And that's why it was a beautiful testimony today from Dr. Rich McCormick, who during COVID is an ER physician taking care of patients, and you played some of his clips.
He was fantastic. I mean, you all honestly, I'm glad you guys got those questions out there to him. Let's follow up, see where we go. But if we can get those guys dead to rights on those lies, I sure hope, sir, that the Republican body is willing to do it. Congressman Brad Wenstrup, always a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right.